Today, we're going to show you the best way to set up your third axis on your bow sight, and that involves shooting at an extreme angle, either down or up. We're in eastern Nebraska, so we don't exactly have mountains or a lot of elevation, but we've came to the steepest part that we could find here, which is down this creek bank, looking down towards the water. We've got a target down there that is at about a 34, 35 degree angle, so probably a good representation of a lot of the shots that you might take at TAC. Rachel and Micah and I, we're going to the Colorado TAC here soon, so no better time than now to get this tested and make sure that everything is spot on. There's quite a few different methods to use to help set your third axis, and I've went over some of those in some previous bow build videos, and all of those methods usually get it very, very close. However, there is no better method for setting your third axis than shooting at an actual target at an actual down or uphill slope. So why is it important to set third axis, and what exactly does it do? Third axis essentially get your bow in the right position left and right like this when you're shooting both downhill and uphill, so that you're not getting left and right misses when shooting at those angles. Third axis, what it is the sight housing here flexing in like this or flexing out. So third axis is irrelevant when you're shooting a flat surface like this, because the scope position in or out is not going to change the level of the bow, so the bow is always going to be perfectly straight up and down. However, when you're shooting at an angle and you draw back and this sight housing is a little bit in, and then we turn it down like that, all of a sudden we're going to have to really tilt the bow to the left like that to get that bubble to line up, and that's going to cause us to have a left miss. Same thing if the sight is pushed out to the right. Now, it's important that you shoot this in because it's actually different for every archer. Depending how you grip the bow and how that bow sits in your hand, it could twist a little bit left, a little bit right. So like this, which is changing the position of the scope both in and out. So I can't just look at this and make sure my scope is square with my limbs and square with my bow and say my third axis is set. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. I mean, we all have a little bit of torque in our grip and in our bow, just naturally because of these cables pulled to the side. So it's natural for that bow to twist or spin just a little bit in our hand. It's important that it's the same every single time, which is why grip is so important. But everything from your grip to your sidebar, how far your sidebar is kicked out, how much weight you have on it, all these different factors can change how much your bow is actually twisting in your hand. And that is why it is so important that we actually shoot this and test it to figure out if it's on. So we've got a target down here. It's at, like I said, a pretty steep angle. If I range it with my Leupold rangefinder, it's got the archery ballistics in it, and I get a cut for myself of 30 yards. Line of sight distance, we'll have to check it with the rangefinder, but it's probably closer to 35-ish, 40-ish. I don't know exactly without looking at a cut chart, but if you're shooting a TAC or if you're shooting a lot of very steep angles, it's very important to have a rangefinder that has a calibrated ballistics basically for your bow, a calibrated cut. If it has just a generalized angle compensation, more times than not, as you get out to further distances like at TAC and have these steeper angles, if this target was at 80 or 90 yards at a 30 degree angle, we need to be shooting way less than 90 yards, and a typical rangefinder is not going to give you the appropriate cut for what you need. More times than not, you'd shoot right over its back. So having a rangefinder like this Leupold Full Draw 5 or one of the Sig Sauer 5K or 4K rangefinders that has the ballistics for your speed, for your bow, it can get that a lot more accurately. Of course, a cut chart that you shoot in is going to be the most accurate always, but this is a third axis video. We're focusing on the left and rights, but you've also got to have your vertical yardage right as well, because then the third axis wouldn't matter either. So we got a target down here. I got it ranged for 31. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna shoot a few arrows. Ideally, if you were going to test this and really get it perfect, you'd want to have a vertical piece of tape to shoot at, so you could see the arrows hitting left, see the arrows hitting right. That would be the best way to determine just how perfect you want to get yours set. For me, I just want to make sure my bow is going to be in the 10 ring, so that's what I'm going to go off of. I've just got my Reinhardt Rhino block down there. There's a little circle kind of in the vitals. I'm going to shoot at that. If it's consistently shooting left or consistently shooting right, I will make the appropriate adjustment. I did set this third axis not by shooting it, but by my string method, my plumb string method. So I think it should be close. If it is on and I don't have to make any adjustments, I'll walk you through what adjustments you need to make if you do this test and you are shooting left or you are shooting right. So let's give it a shot. Now that I decide to shoot, the wind starts to pick up.
Yeah.
Nice. Let me take a look. That felt really good. It looks like it's just a little bit to the right, but I honestly think that was me more than anything. I'm just gonna shoot a couple more shots and we'll verify what we got here. It looks like it's a little right too. Might have to make an adjustment here. See, this is why we shoot and check it in, because if we didn't shoot and I just thought my third axis was on, I would get the tack, and as I'm shooting downhill, all my shots would be drifting to the right, and I would think, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Well, really, it's the third axis on my sight. I'm leaning my bow to the right to line up the bubble correctly, and that's why my shots are drifting to the right. The opposite would happen if I was shooting uphill. If I was shooting uphill, on those uphill shots, I would have to lean the bow to the left, and I'd be getting left misses with my bow. So that is why it's very critical that we get this third axis set perfectly. The wind is starting to pick up just a little bit, and it is coming left to right, so that could be part of why the arrows are shooting to the right a little bit. So it is important that you do this on a windless day if you can help it, or just know that the wind could be impacting your arrows if you are shooting to the right or shooting to the left when you're testing this. So let's give it another shot. That was right on. That shot felt really good, honestly. I think it hit right behind the pin. I think that one, the second one to the right, might have been just a little bit me. Maybe it might have been the wind. Let me give it another shot just to see. The best way to really do this is to shoot over and over and over and over again until you are 100% confident in your marks. I would say based on that last shot, it hit right behind the pin. That's right where I wanted it, but it is important to not just sight in or tune or adjust your bow just based off of one shot. You should always go off of averages. So if I'm averaging to the right, probably means my sight should have a little bit of an adjustment. Shot number 4. That was right next to the last one. That was awesome. I'm gonna say that honestly, my third axis feels really, really good. Now, let's just talk through some of the adjustments here. If I'm shooting a right-handed bow, I'm shooting downhill, my arrows are impacting to the right, it's because I'm leaning my top of my bow to the right, and that's why those arrows are hitting right of where I'm aiming. So if I was doing that, the cause of that would be the sight housing here being, let me think about it. It would be too far out, okay? Because if the sight housing here, this left edge, was out, twisted this way, then that means as I'd come to full draw, I would have to twist my bow. Yeah, I would have to twist my bow to the right to get that bubble to line up level in the level. That would cause the right misses. So the correct adjustment to make to correct that on your sight would be to move this left edge of your sight housing in towards you as the shooter. So every sight's a little bit different. This sight here, the Mathews UltraView sight, we could just loosen the third axis screw and make the third axis screw adjustment here by twisting it, rotate that in, and that should move that sight in. It should allow me to, instead of having the bow leaned to the right when I'm shooting downhill, it should bring it back to the left, keep it more level. Then I could shoot, it'll bring those arrows back left. Of course, you're going to have to shoot to double check this. And also, when you make a third axis adjustment, you want to double check your left to right at level ground before you check it again shooting down the hill, because on a lot of third axis sights, you pivot that sight housing a little bit this way or a little bit that way, it's going to move that pin position a little bit left or a little bit right. So not only is your third axis changing, but your pin position is changing. So it is important that you have your left to right on horizontal, perfectly flat ground. You want that set up perfectly straight from the get-go, because if that's a little bit left or a little bit right, it's only going to be magnified when you're shooting on these downhill slopes, especially at distance. So if I'm shooting to the right, then I would move that in. Opposite would happen if I was shooting to the left. If I was shooting to the left, my arrows were drifting to the left as I'm shooting downhill, then that means my top of my cam is leaning to the left as I'm shooting down the hill, and I'm doing that to get the bubble level. That means that the sight housing here is, the left edge is too far inside. So I would have to twist this outside edge, twist it out like this. Very small adjustments make a huge difference with this. So it's very important that you make very minor, small adjustments with it. Now, the opposite would be the case if you're shooting uphill. If we're shooting to the right, shooting uphill, right-handed shooter, that would mean that the sight is actually too far inside. This outside edge is too far inside to you as the shooter, and it would need to be rotated out just a little bit, because that angle of the bubble down versus up is going to be different if your third axis is off. So technically you're still leaning the bow to the right, however the sight housing itself is too far to the left on this left side, or too close to you on the left side, so we need to move it out. So if we were shooting to the left uphill, means we're leaning the bow to the left, it would mean the opposite. It would mean that this scope housing is further out, and we need to take this left edge and move it in. So again, it's very, very, very small adjustments with this. A little bit goes a really long ways, so it's important you do this in very, very micro adjustments. I'm pretty confident that based on how I set my sight with the plumb method, that I've got it close to exactly where I need it to be. If I was a professional target shooter, I would spend hours, and if not days, shooting at a vertical line at further distances, at steeper angles, and I would get a real assessment, because I guarantee one way or another I'm off by just a little bit on this, which is why it's so important to check. But I'd say that I've got my sight position set where I want it to be for the third axis, but Rachel's coming with too, so I think we ought to have her do a little bit of shooting and see if hers is on as well. So let's give it a go and see how it looks.
You ready?
I think so.
If you hear a splash, mind your business.
Ooh, you smacked my arrow?
I think so.
Where'd you hit on that?
Right between two of your arrows, like 1 o'clock of the 10, just out.
Nice.
Ooh,
Where was that one?
low right. Let me shoot again.
How's that one?
Go slightly low right again. Yeah. That felt good.
That one landed good, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that landed right next to the first one.
You better shoot another one.
That was low, that was me.
That's okay. We don't have to count the shots that are off. That one sounded good.
Yeah,
Where'd you hit there?
I think right in the middle of my main group there. Yeah, I've got 3 pinned up right in between yours.
I'd say it's about spot on.
That might have broke your knock.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Sorry.
You're supposed to save that for tack.
Who's gonna go get the arrows? Nose goes.
I'll go get him. All right. Here's our group. As you can see, Rachel did have 3 low shots here, but I think that was probably more her than anything. The majority of our group is spot on, and honestly, if you look at the target, it's probably on the right side here of the circle, but in all honesty, I think that's more or less where we were aiming. So I wouldn't say that we were shooting to the right, but all in all, looks pretty good. I think we'll do just a little bit more shooting. Just confirm that everything's on, and then we should be good to go. It's a long ways up there. So one quick side note here, if you're shooting any kind of elevation, any kind of angles whatsoever, I see a lot of different people do this a lot of different ways, and we've in fact done it wrong in the past just because we didn't know. But the goal of what you want to do when you're shooting downhill or shooting uphill is you don't want to necessarily draw straight back and then bend at the waist that way. You want to bend at the waist, but what is more important is keeping your shoulders in a straight line towards the target at whatever angle it is, up or down. So it's important that your shoulders stay in line, because if you just drop your bow arm, we lose all of our T-form, and it makes shooting resistance release especially, or any release, very, very difficult, makes holding very difficult. So I'm gonna show you that just real quick, and you can kind of see what I mean by that. So I am bending down towards the target, my waist towards the target, the bow's right at the target or slightly above. Drawing back, my shoulders are in line, already set. Pull through my shot, hit exactly where I was aiming. So I really hope you guys found this video helpful. Please, if you did, leave a comment, like the video, and as always, thank you for following along, and we will see you on the next one.